Every day, something dramatic happens in the Caribbean that affects our lives. We'll give you the details. We'll give you the facts on Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. Host Eddie Frederick.
Welcome to Caribbean Perspective. So glad you can join us. The story that takes the lead in today's edition for Wednesday, 4th December 2024, and brought to you in association with our friends at Antillean Group. Bank of Jamaica in wait-and-see mode for raft of Trump policies. Details after this important message.
Believe in our strength, we'll stand by you. Protection from all, perils big and small. Reassurance we give, it's so clear to see. Peace of mind, that's our service guarantee. We look after all our family. Yes, we do at every opportunity.
Antillean Group, underwriters of all classes of insurance solutions for your protection and investment. Live well financially.
Welcome back. In a case of wait and see for the Bank of Jamaica, BOJ, as the world eyes the January return of US President Donald Trump and his economic policies. Speaking at a quarterly briefing in Kingston, the central bank's executive noted that while much of his policies could impact the local economy, in many instances the fears center around likely worst-case scenarios for which they will have to plan. CVM Live reports.
Come January 20, 2025, when U.S. President-elect Donald Trump takes office, Jamaica's central bank, like its people, will be in a wait-and-see mode for the possible raft of changes and how these could likely impact the local economy. On Monday, Bank of Jamaica Governor Richard Biles noted that inflation and core inflation were within range, but notes that external geopolitical tensions and trade factors influencing some of our main trade partners could affect that. Deputy Governor, leading the Research and Economic Programming Division and Financial Stability, Dr. Robert Stennett, shares some amount of planning is taking place, but clarity is needed.
We've started preliminary work, Dashan, but clearly what has been announced to date cannot be seen as declarative policy directions that the government will take. So we are going to wait until we have more clarity about exactly what will be done before we can formalize our thoughts. However, our preliminary view have been informed by discussions that we've seen amongst other technicians in the global space. We're aware that there are plans, as you correctly put it, to implement tariffs on goods coming out of China and other countries.
And as the clarity comes into focus, he notes concerns around myriad topical issues and how these could impact inflation and remittance inflows.
We're aware of a proposal to cut taxes. We're aware of a plan to undertake mass deportation. And finally, there are plans to increase U.S. oil supply. The impact of all of those policies have been assessed by international commentators. And we're aware that GDP estimates, the impact on GDP estimates range anywhere between 1% to 2% on the U.S. economy. When we take those into consideration, we also consider that inflation in the U.S. could rise, and where prices coming out of the U.S. are higher, then those will affect us here in Jamaica.
However, despite these fears and the likely effect on expectations, he reminds Jamaicans that these are only worst-case scenarios.
But to the extent that Jamaican nationals are involved, the diaspora are affected. To the extent that these things happen, then remittance flows could be affected, and maybe other potential foreign exchange flows could be affected. But I just want to hasten to say that these are worst-case thought processes that we're going through. We have to wait until we see exactly what is feasible in the context of the U.S. administration for these things to be done, and then we will be able to more declaratively assess the impact on Jamaica and potentially communicate our thoughts.
He was responding to questions from journalists at a recent BOJ quarterly briefing in Kingston.
According to leader of the People's Labour Party in St. Kitts and Nevis, Dr. Timothy Harris, when he led the Team Unity government, necessary upgrades were made to the due diligence infrastructure of the Citizenship by Investment program. Glenn Bart of SKN Newsline reports.
Dr. Harris said the checking of applicants was given priority after engaging with stakeholders, including the United States and the European Union. Care was taken, Harris said, to avoid infusing political elements into the process of selecting the due diligence companies. The PLP leader responded to questions in a November press conference on the level of commitment given to vetting CBI applicants and the due diligence companies themselves.
Neither myself nor the cabinet got involved in that selection because we were very mindful that the politics could emblemish what ought to be done on strict technical grounds. What I would say to you, when we came to office in 2015, we enlarged the number of due diligence providers based on the conversations we would have had with international stakeholders, including the EU, including the US government, etc. We had advised that a number of considerations ought to be had to the enlargement. And I think we moved from about 2, or whatever the number was then, to probably up to 6. In other words, we brought in more. So it could be diversified, so that these people will not be, if you will, overworked in terms of the number of cases that they had to cover and be tempted to take any shortcuts.
In addition to the increased number of due diligence companies involved with the CBI, reviewing previously approved applicants was implemented.
15,000 applicants went through a second screening for us to determine where they were. 15,000 applications went through a look back to see what was in the beginning and what was occurring now. That is how highly we valued and we weighed on the due diligence element of our CBI program. In fact, when we left office, we were about to do another follow-up look back. And I think over the last 5 years of those who would have been granted citizenship in the program.
Harris believes the CIU managed the program well, making it a platinum brand in the region. Glenn Bart reporting for SK Newsline.
You're listening to Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick, in association with our friends at
Antillean Group, underwriters of all classes of insurance solutions for your protection and investment. Live well financially.
Latin America and CARICOM countries are struggling with the energy transition. This, according to Minister of Energy and Energy Industries in Trinidad and Tobago, Stuart Young, while speaking at the launch of the CAF's report on economic development, RED 2024. This TTT News item with Sunil Lala tells us a lot more.
It's known as the RED Report, not exactly for its color, but the acronym RED for the Report of Economic Development. The 2024 issue was delivered by the CAF Development Bank on Monday, highlighting the need for a just energy transition in Latin America and the Caribbean, which considered each country's realities. Speaking at the event, Minister of Energy and Energy Industries, Stuart Young, said the energy transition issue continues to be a matter of critical concern, especially for countries like Trinidad and Tobago.
I've also tried to get the African continent on board with us, because I'm convinced that with these 3 regions, Latin America, CARICOM, and Africa, advocating together as one voice for this extremely important topic, the more developed countries would take increasing notice. Latin America, like the CARICOM region and Africa, are struggling with the energy transition.
Finance Minister Com Imbert pointed out that it's easy for diversified economies to talk about the elimination of fossil fuels.
But for countries that have few alternative sources of income, the future will be difficult. Trinidad and Tobago is an energy-based economy, and therefore we must be careful and prudent. And our energy transition must therefore be measured and sensible. We certainly cannot abandon the production of oil and gas.
However, he said Trinidad and Tobago will continue its part to reduce its carbon footprint, despite being just a speck on the emissions map.
Because one of the issues that we as a country have is that they look at the per capita emissions of Trinidad and Tobago. We have a small population, just over 1 million people. We have some of the largest petrochemical industries in the world. So therefore, if you're using per capita emissions to measure Trinidad and Tobago, we're going to rank high up on the scale. But if you look at total emissions, we are just a small speck in the carbon emission landscape.
Minister Young, though, said the renewables talk is a part of continuous discussions.
So when you weigh the cost of natural gas at, say, $5 versus $15 for green hydrogen as the initial product into the creation of the green hydrogen, you see that quite simply the economics are not there as yet. But Trinidad and Tobago has been granted the permission, the government, the cabinet have granted us the permission to build the first green hydrogen pilot project, and the CAF Bank, I'm happy to say, are helping us with that project.
The CAF report highlights the importance of increasing the presence of renewables energies and replacing fossil fuels with cleaner alternatives, as well as the role that gas can play in the transition. Sonolala, TTT News.
Major drug bust in St. Anne, Jamaica, yielding the arrest of 2 men, one Jamaican and a Bahamian. More in this TVJ News item.
2 men are now in police custody following a major drug bust along the Prairie Main Road in St. Anne early this morning. According to Acting Commanding Officer for the parish, Deputy Superintendent Rowan Elliott, a Bahamian national is also involved. DSP Elliott says the operation unfolded at about 4:20 a.m.
An Isuzu motor truck was intercepted by the St. Anne police along the Prairie Main Road. The truck contained several parcels of compressed ganja, estimated to weigh over 3,000 pounds. 2 men were taken into custody in relation to the seizure. One a Jamaican and the other is a Bahamian. The Era 2 FNID was informed and is conducting investigations. Further updates on this matter will be provided.
DSP Elliott is warning persons involved in criminal activities.
The St. Anne Police would like to warn criminals involved in these types of illicit activities to desist from conducting these activities in the parish. We will not relent in our efforts to bring criminals involved in these types of activities and other criminal activities to justice.
I am Eddie Frederick. This has been Caribbean Perspective, a whole new approach to highlighting developments in the Caribbean.
In the meantime, please follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel for daily regional news and more, in association with our friends at Antillian Group.
Believe in our strength, we'll stand by you. Protection from all perils, big and small. Reassurance we give, it's so clear to see. Peace of mind, that's our service guarantee. We look after all our family. Yes, we do at every opportunity.
Antillian Group, underwriters of all classes of insurance solutions for your protection and investment. Live well financially.